It's the injury every athlete fears. Associated with essential surgery and a year on the sidelines, a ruptured anterior cruciate ligament has a devastating effect on those who suffer it. With post-operative re-rupture rates as high as 1 in 3 and just half of patients returning to their previous levels within 2 years, I'm on a mission to discover if there's a better way to recovery. And with the rise of women's sport unequally blighted by ACL injuries, I also want to know how we can prevent this often innocuous injury from occurring so frequently. I think I've found some solutions, but whisper them around surgeons. You might be able to return to the activity you love quicker without going into the night. And hold on to your tin hats. We're now learning that a ruptured ACL can heal naturally. Join me as I speak to the professionals using groundbreaking research to lead the way in challenging the overdependency on surgery. Plus, hear from a raft of athletes who have already followed this alternative pathway, the non-operative. So in this episode, I want to introduce you to somebody who I came across on the ACL and meniscus tear recovery without surgery Facebook group. His name's Stuart Rainbow, and his story's as uplifting as his name portrays, in that he's gone from a really devastating injury to returning to his aspiration of a remarkable sporting feat that he's now looking to achieve after overcoming this. So this is Stuart's story.
So my injury was, obviously like most, it was a full rupture of the ACL, meniscus damage, obviously, which is pretty common, I believe, a fracture of the top part of the leg, just under the knee. And I did that downhill skiing at Mount Buller. I hit a lovely icy patch. Believe it or not, there is icy patches in Mount Buller, and just couldn't stop. I've been skiing for 26 years, never had an injury skiing, just basically trying to get an edge. And when I finally got an edge, I believe what happened is it dug in, because you're trying to get an edge on your skis. My skis will know this anyway, and it dug in, and then it just kicked my knee back. And I just remember my knee, and then I was on my back, and I just remember rolling over and seeing my ski go one way, which I don't normally lose my skis. And I just thought to myself, oh no, I've done something here. And so my wife and family ended up coming down and seeing me there, and my good nephew was at Icy. He's a snowboarder. He's an 18-year-old cool dude, and he ended up sliding all the way on his backside down towards me. And he's a big guy. He's probably like 6'2", 6'3", and he ended up. I still remember he backed up towards me, sitting on his butt, and I had to use his body as leverage, because it was quite a obviously steep area. And I just remember just trying to click my ski boot in, and I just couldn't seem to get the power to click it in. I'm like, what's going on here? So I needed my wife and him and my brother-in-law to give me a bit of a help, and basically lock my boot. And then I actually had to ski down 2 different chairlifts, 2 different runs and 2 different chairlifts to go back. And I remember telling my brother-in-law, I just can't do it. I don't know what's going on. And then hobbled to the bus stop. And as soon as I got to the bus stop, which we were staying at the ski lodge up there, I ended up there was a dent in the ground, and I just remember falling over right at the bus, right there at the bus, and head first. And it wasn't good. And I just knew I'd done something bad, and I was just hoping it wasn't something serious, because I was all my hopes were I was training for a 200 miler run, and so that's sort of how that sort of happened there, Tim.
Yeah, so your knee was in a pretty bad state. I mean, it sounds obvious that it would, but for many people that suffer an ACL injury, it can be a bit of surprise to them that they've done the kind of severity of the damage that they've done, because they can be quite stable. Was your knee in a pretty bad place in terms of, sounds like you'd lost a lot of the function and strength and stability in it when it happened?
Yeah, so I did. When I was walking down to the ski lodge, obviously it was on the road, and ski boots, getting around in ski boots. I hate ski boots. They're the worst things ever, right? But I just remember just going slowly down there, and my nephew was with me, and yeah, you're right. Like, just I was basically shuffling. I wasn't really bending my knee or anything like that. And then when I had, so I didn't go to medical up there. I didn't go to the, first aid area. I sort of went home, and true to me, I jumped in the shower. I'm like, maybe if I have a shower, it'll magically disappear or something, right?
Yep. Mine was if I have a couple of pints, then it will magically disappear.
Yeah, it wasn't long, and I did have a couple of ciders after that, but got out of the shower, it was still the same. And then the crew came in, and they're like, what's going on? Because I normally don't have, an injury of skiing. That doesn't happen. But we ended up chasing down a physio. The physio came outside on site. He's actually the Australian Olympic physio as well. And he was magnificent. And he put me in one of those big black knee braces, which we've probably all had if you've done an ACL. And he alluded to the fact that it could be an ACL. He's obviously seen many in his time. But he didn't, I don't think he wanted to dampen my spirits. You know what I mean? I don't think he wanted to do that. And to be honest with you, I still didn't quite understand the seriousness of an ACL, because I've had a meniscus injury when I was a lot younger, but I just knew that I didn't want to have an ACL because it was bad, because of what I heard. But yeah, so in terms of movement, I had not much movement. In fact, I remember my brother-in-law having to literally help me get off the floor because we were icing the knee and that sort of stuff. And it wasn't long before, and as you would know, Tim, after doing two, swelling kicked in, and then your movement sort of all gets restricted. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to understand from this point of your knee been in a pretty bad place, and you're probably hearing the word surgery as well around as the typical way of it treating. How did you come to the decision to go down the non-operative pathway?
It's a good question. So again, I was probably a little naive or not quite educated enough on the severity of ACLs. You hear it, what do you think? They're out for a season, whatever. But when you do it, and if anyone's done it, mentally, it's a massive challenge. I had some dark times there because you're just so used to being active, and all of a sudden you're restricted. But I remember meeting up with my doctor there, who is in Epworth in Richmond, and so I met up with him. He said, "You got to come back because the swelling's too much." Came back from the swelling. This is after the MRIs and everything like that. And he said, "Listen, if we have to, giving on your age and where you're at, I mean, a lot of things have changed now in the medical industry. Obviously, it's a rapidly changing environment with research and science and everything else." He said, "We may go down the path of no surgery." He said, "But we're going to stick to the surgery plan and go from there." I said, "Okay, that's fine." And then I caught up with him another, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks later again in Epworth in Richmond. And it was on the Monday, and I was supposed to go in for surgery on the Friday. So mentally I was fully prepared to go in and ready to go under the knife. And when we got there, he said, "G'day, call me in, Stuart." And this takes me back. I said to my wife, I'm going to stitch you up. When I go in there, I'm going to jog into the room. And of course, you're in the waiting room there, and everyone's got knee injuries. Everyone's, either on crutches or, got braces on or whatever, and they're with their partners or with their mums or dads, whatever. And he called me and said, "Stuart, come in." And I trotted around the corner and looked at him and went straight in. And I'll never forget, Ron, we were in there in the room, and he had tears streaming down his face, and he was just cracking up for 30 seconds. And I said, Ron, how you going, mate? And he goes, that was brilliant. And he goes, how are you? I said, well, not bad. I said, I wanted to
see you get into the.
I jogged into the room, 100%. I jogged into the room.
Knee brace on this stage, or were you?
I didn't have the knee brace on. Honestly, Rowan told me to, basically drop the knee brace pretty. Like I dropped it within probably a week or two. So really early on, and he said, you want to get range of movement in, that sort of stuff. And okay, all right, no worries. So we did that, and mentally, that was, as supportive as a knee brace is, we all want it there. And as he said, look, I've done the damage.
Yeah.
So I can't really do anything more to it. But you want to get that ROI going. They want to get that the range of movement, the range of ROM. And anyway, so I went into the room with him. It was great, and he sat me down on the bed, and he did a few stretches, and he said, how's it feeling, and how's it going, and everything else. And then he said, listen, he goes, honestly, he goes, where you are now is where you'd be post 4 months surgery. He said, you don't need to have surgery. He goes, I make my money from surgeries and doing surgeries. He goes, so if you want to do a surgery, I'm more than happy to. He goes, but you don't need to have surgery. You're 4 months post surgery where you are. And you need to go and continue on with your rehab, which I was seeing a physio at that stage, and give you your exercises, all that sort of stuff. Because you need to continue on with that, and keep going. And he goes, we'll make a call. We'll make a call in a few weeks and check in and see how you're going. And I actually felt disappointed. I think it's a human trait that when something gets taken away from us that we want, or we're looking forward to, we want it. And I was ready to go. I was telling everyone, I'm having surgery on this. I'm going to be out for 6-8 weeks on crutches, whatever. Ready to attach that hamstring onto my ACL.
You had a clear pathway that had been well trodden, right? Whereas now you've just been kind of given something that's a bit
correct. Yeah, that's right. And don't get me wrong, no one wants to go under the knife.
Yeah,
no one wants to have surgery. But I left there, and then it wasn't until I remember coming out of the lifts down the bottom, and I rang my wife. And I started to get really emotional. And if you've done an ACL, it's easy to get emotional. We've all done it. And I just said, I can't believe this. He said that when, I don't need to have surgery. Apparently we're 4 months where we'd be post surgery on the recovery, and just to keep going on this route. So I was left a little shocked. The benefit was I left that place not, thousands and thousands of dollars up, as opposed to a couple $100 for a meeting with the doctor. But was I expecting that result? I certainly wasn't. And am I glad that result's happened now? 100%, especially when I talk to some of the older generation, and you talk to them and you say you haven't had surgery, and they can't understand that. And now obviously I'm back on board. I'm training for this 200 mile. This 200 mile is coming up again in February. So we're 5 months away or something like that. So yeah, slowly. Since then I've done the 100K walk. I've done, I've been back training. I'm curious to know if my ACL has attached.
That was one of my questions, whether you'd had a follow-up MRI scan. And I'm guessing the answer is no, because no one does have one, because it's just not considered an option, right?
Yeah. I'm curious to know. If it didn't attach, I just think, I'd be a bit disappointed. But
yeah, what are you gaining from knowing if you're
right,
doing a 200 miler anyway? So it's not so. I'm guessing your standard of life hasn't been too aggressively impacted by not
correct.
knowing or by the injury. Where I mean,
Yes.
just to know, in that conversation, was the caveat put in place that you were going to have to restrict your levels of activity if you didn't have the surgery? Because that's one I hear a lot. Oh, well, yeah, you can not have surgery if you're happy to never turn again. Basically, well, returning to pivoting sport is the more serious statement that people say. But that's one that's always kind of that I've been challenging, and I've returned to playing football or soccer to you with it. But it was very much the definitive statement was, oh, you can avoid surgery, but you can't twist and turn on that knee. Were you told that? Was it just simply, you're at 4 months post-operative now, just keep going?
Yeah, correct. It was much the latter, Tim. So, he in Rowan's defence, in the doctor's defence, he quizzed you before that and asked you, what do you do? What do you do? Recreation, everything like that. I'm more of a sort of a trail runner, which is, on the trails as opposed to on the roads. And his advice was he didn't want me on the trails just yet because of the uneven surfaces. So whether that had something to do with, the twisting and turning or the uneven surfaces and, stepping on rocks or whatever, I'm assuming it probably did, but that was only for a short period of time anyway. And, as any good patient does, they just ignore their doctor's advice and went and did it anyway. So
how long was that when you were doing trail running after rupturing your ACL? Not advocating by any means. That question's not a leading into here's what you should try doing.
Yeah, correct. So look, I progressively, I started because I started walking, and then I remember the next day or the day after, I climbed up a mountain, and then I'm like, I walked back down, and then I think it's just like a natural progression. I started running. I'll just jog a little bit. I'll jog to this letterbox. I'll jog to that power pole, whatever it is, and then it just flowed on from there. And then I was like, well, I'm here now. I must admit, even since I've done it now, and it's over a year now, like I still now probably check the ground more than I used to, as in where I'm putting my feet. And I think that's just a mental block or a mental challenge, if you will, that, I've got to overcome and I think that's become ever since from the injury, because you think, you don't ever want to go back there again. Now, unfortunately, you've done it twice. But I think you don't want to. But in terms of the twisting and turning, it's funny you say that. Like, I'm actually thinking about going back on play basketball as a junior. But going back and playing some social, Tuesday night sort of stuff, and I haven't had an issue at all with twisting and turning. And I sort of run around, kick the soccer ball with my kids, and do little, games with them and drills with them, that sort of stuff. And which is the only stuff you want to do after you have your injury, of course. But I haven't had an issue whatsoever.
Yeah. So how long would you say it was till you? I know you mentioned that you're still watching where you walk, which is probably not the worst outcome. But
yeah,
how long do you think it was till you were back to your kind of same levels of activity as pre-injury after the incident happened?
Oh, do you know what? That is a great question, and I can probably get that answer for you. So, because you're a magician with your editing, you'll probably edit this out anyway. So, just give me 1 second. So I did my So I did my injury, I'm pretty sure, in July or something like that. And I did a 73K hike in February. There was a 5-day hike in Wilson's Promontory. And then I was training for the Oxfam, which is the 100K walk And I think we did that in February or March as well. So I reckon I would have been back within sort of 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
As a rough guide. And that was running. It was hard for me because I was so active, like most of us, having that do an ACL, and just been, just doing nothing. But each day, or it would be each day, especially early on in those first probably, I reckon 8 to 12 weeks, you just start to notice differences in range of movement, or you can now start to take one step up each stairs as opposed to 2 steps on each stair, or you can bend your knee a little bit more, bend over a little bit easier, just a range of different stuff. So each day you'd notice little things, but to be honest, it wasn't. I mean, running was a little bit longer because I think it was, again, a bit of a mental block, and I just hadn't done one before, and all you're guided by is the physio and the exercises you're doing. So it was just really a matter of your body more than anyone. Just take it easy and go from there. But it wasn't long. It would have been 4 or 5 months, I reckon, and then back into it. Yeah.
Yep. And you were following a structural rehabilitation plan led by a physio then?
I was, yeah. And like every good patient, we don't enjoy that sort of stuff. It's boring as batshit. And it's mentally hard to go there. One thing that did work well, and this is from my running coach, in fact, and it wasn't from my physio, it was, and I honestly believe it really did help and speed up my recovery, was running up and down the line in the pool. I used to go in there, and I used to go in there and pump out like two Ks. I'd be there for an hour or two, and
give it,
and it would forward,
just
forward.
I know that sounds a bit bizarre, but one of my big ones is the sled pull backwards. So that really helps target your lower quads, which are kind of your stabilizing forces, which compensate if your ACL hasn't reattached.
Right. Okay. That's a good one. Yeah.
You might look a bit weird. I mean, I guess running around in the pool is probably not the best looky way.
Oh, mate, look, I put on a few kilos in anyway, so it didn't matter. I was looking a bit weird. But the other thing, if you're going to do that, and my coach put me on this, is get those, those little booties you wear if you're in a river or whatever. You can get those little, wetsuit type boots.
Yep.
Because sometimes if the pool's got those little those little square tiles, and I noticed this after the second time I was in there, it's really rough on your feet, really hard on your feet, especially if you're there all day and you're trying to trying to lift your knees up a little bit and whatever. So that was good. Yeah. So the pool was really good, and I think that really helped me come along a bit, and it also gave me a feeling of running again, even though I was in the water, because obviously the water helps you float, which was great. And once I started, the smile on my face, I'm like, how good's this?
Yeah.
It was just relief, and to feel that bead of sweat come down again, even though you're in the water, it was just magnificent. Yeah.
Yeah. A really important takeaway, I think, for that is how important that we have surgeons like, huge credit to your surgeon for kind of allowing you to listen to your body and give it a go. Because you certainly wouldn't have been doing the trails after 5 months if you had surgery. So that's really good, and hopefully your recovery continues to be a positive one. Just wanted to finish on if you could give a piece of advice to someone who was kind of currently sat on the fence deciding what to do. They've just suffered an ACL rupture themselves. If you had any advice that you'd give them in terms of that decision making process of maybe giving an Operative a go.
Yeah, I would say
other than the little booties, obviously.
You walk around. I would say everyone's situation is different. Okay, so I'm still seeing with professional and elite athletes that when they do an ACL, I'm leaning towards obviously AFL footballers here. They're getting the surgery, so there must be some reasoning behind that, or whether it's, I don't know what it is. So maybe if you are that high level, it's probably worthwhile talking to some doctors and some people that have done it or whatever. I would also be saying to do your research, expand your horizons, because knowing. I was completely blown away that you could get away with not having surgery, and honestly, without a word of lie, I feel like I haven't even done an ACL now. And you feel that early on, so don't be afraid to embrace change, explore something new, and obviously the major part, as we know, the human body is an incredible thing and has an ability to adapt and change and grow. So make sure you're open to that. And on the mental side of things, there's this group on Facebook's probably the most supportive one I've ever been on. And I'm not one for these supportive type groups, but I thought this was incredible. Talk to other people that have done it. I wished I'd done that because I felt like it was the end of the world. So talk to people that have done it. Listen to people like Tim, you and your podcast, and just ask for advice. That's probably the best thing. And remain positive, because you will get through it. There is a silver lining. You will make it through the end. And for me, I will cross that 200-mile finish line.